Καλώς ορίσατε σε ένα ακόμη επεισόδιο του podcast Straight Up Chicago Investor. Είμαι ο καλεσμένος Niko Apostal. Σας και μαζί μου, όπως πάντα, είναι παραποψήπες του Tom E. Mark.
Nice work. We got Greek.
Dude, I love it, dude.
It's all Greek to me.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I'm Greek. I don't know what he said, but he could have been totally wrong. But I'll take it. That was awesome.
We're up to 10 or 11 languages. Can someone fact check that for us?
We got two this week. We got English.
English?
We got English accent. We counted that as a language. It's a dialect. And we got Greek this week. So this is a big week for the show.
Yeah. This is a great episode for our listeners, especially those who are just getting started and looking to expand and looking to buy that 10 unit. Like, there's just so much simple value here. Like, it's just real estate is its simplest form, but like, just got to go do these things.
Well, what I loved about today's episode, and I got really into it, was he made his point through story. And that's such a huge thing for anyone that's trying to sell something or trying to get their point across. He gave it through story. He gave examples, even his own examples. And it really resonated with being able to land that in someone's mind to have them get the point.
Yeah. It's also another good example of, you follow someone who actually does what they say, right? Like, I see it so many times, like with agents, where it's like they don't understand the 2 to 4 unit game, and they're trying to help someone, and it's like it's just a cluster for everybody.
It's sad. More of them don't understand it than do when it comes to that world.
Oh, it's probably like 90-10.
Yep.
Like, it's not even close,
Yep.
right? Like, so. But yeah, great episode. Let's go ahead and jump right in. What's our housing buyer tip of the week?
All right, our housing provider tip of the week is right now we're filming this. It's middle of November. We finally found out that our taxes are coming out and due December 15th. They're talking Cook County specifically, and they'll be due again probably February 1st. But keep this in mind for anyone that's in the northwest part of Cook County. So if you're out there in Schaumburg Township, if you're there in Maine Township, Hanover Township, any of those out northwest, you're going to get reassessed next year. So you'll get your first tax bill in February, but your taxes will go up whenever they put it out in 2026, fall of 2026. So keep that in mind. If you're not contesting your property tax, if you're not staying on top of that, you should do it. You have two options. You could go do it yourself, or you can hire a law firm that will do it for you. One of our sponsors is Realia Tax Associates, and they do that. We actually use them here at GC. But make sure you have it top of mind. So next fall, you're not pissed when you get a bill and it's going to be too late to go back and contest.
All right. Our guest today, Heads Up Essex 312. Essex, big friends of the pod. We've had several of them on earlier. Before that, managed a property management company, sold that off, was a managing broker. It's just been involved in real estate in a ton of different ways over the past, call it 20 years. And without further ado, Niko Apostal, welcome to the episode.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Shout out to Brian Korfendor. I always mess up his name, and I'm going to do it again. But thank you, Brian, for making the introduction. We're excited to have you. Before we jump into 312 and all the great things you're doing at Essex, let's just get a little bit of background here, because you've had a very interesting career. Where did you start in real estate?
So real estate's been part of my life my entire life. So as a kid growing up, my father, he got his license, I think, in 1968. And then when he was dating my mom in 1972, she got her real estate license. And that was one of the fun things they did when they were dating. So growing up, they would buy buildings, fix them up, and rent them or sell them. So all of my childhood, I have a lot of childhood memories of like going into one of the 6 flats and vacuuming the stairs and changing the light bulbs and fixing the plumbing with him. And so that was dinner time conversation. Flash forward, I get back to Chicago after college and a little bit of time in New York City, and it's 2001. I'm applying for jobs. I'm also getting my real estate license in the process. It seems like a rite of passage in our family, right? And so September 11th happens. Nobody's hiring. My mom at this point had become a full-time realtor, retired from teaching, and become a full-time realtor at Coldwell Banker in Lincoln Park. And she said, why don't you come be my assistant while you look for a real job? Flash forward a year, I'm off on my own. 3 years later, started a team and kind of followed. I was in a great environment in that office. There was just so much excitement, so much happening. People were turning from stocks and investments and other things into real estate. And it was just a really exciting time. And more people were being pulled in from other industries. And it went from like this second career for little old ladies into a really professional atmosphere with people bringing innovation and excitement. And and really opening up the market to whole new types of development. So
That was such a crazy time. Because I
was.
remember when 2001, you could only put 4 or 5 pictures on the MLS. Actually, 2001, it was just coming onto the internet.
Right. It was DOS based. I had to
Yes.
remember all the codes.
yes.
Type them in.
So it was like, what a crazy time just for real estate in general. No more getting a book, and now you could upload pictures, and like you can actually, people trying to figure out, like, I remember someone's like, I'll get pictures and I'll have them up there in about 7 days. Because like back then, you had to go get it processed. You had to go get it like uploaded. You had to figure digitally how to do it. Like
Exactly.
it was crazy back then. Like, so it's super crazy fun time to be in. The
You had, I think it was 180 characters for the remarks.
Yeah.
Like, that was all you had. And you had to basically try and hook someone in one sentence.
But you know what's amazing? You came in, I came in right around the same time too. It was such an amazing time because you're coming in with the like expectation of like, yeah, we should be doing it this way, while everyone else was having a hard time with like, wait, where's the book?
Right. No,
is the book
right.
here Friday? Like,
You know,
like that was
the
crazy.
binder was still getting dropped off at our office, although fewer and fewer agents were looking at it. But it was fascinating. And it was so easy back then. You could literally write on a piece of paper, for sale, call me, put it in the window, and you'd get 3 to 5 offers on a place. You know, and so it was just a great time to be in there and learning. But you're dealing with a lot of inventory, a lot of transactions, a lot of pull through. But I didn't learn the nitty gritty of real estate. You were order takers. You were as fast as you could go. That was what you did.
You learn how to do a transaction because you're doing so many at volume.
Oh, sure.
Because
Yeah.
I remember you put the sign in the ground. And you're like, all right, cool. This is $4,700. I'll get 6 weeks from now. Like you could count. You could count it, man.
Literally.
Like, for sure. Like, but yeah, it was. But you didn't learn how to actually grind it out and be a real estate agent until maybe after the crash. For me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, half the contract was things you're like, that never applies.
Yeah.
And then suddenly flash forward to 2009 and there were reasons why those paragraphs were in those contracts. Oh, those are real problems you have to deal with. You know, why does a mortgage contingency allow someone, the seller, to go find you financing? Oh yeah, it's because people use that as an excuse to get out of the contract last minute. But if you're a bank selling a foreclosed unit, you're more than happy to give that person a loan, and you're not getting out of the contract at the 11th hour due to a financing contingency.
Attorney review, like 4 or 5 paragraphs on one page.
Oh, just
Faxed over though, still
Yes.
faxed over at that point.
It's amazing. So
talk to us leading up to the crash then. So like you get in 01,
Yeah.
by whatever now you have your own team, like you mentioned. Things are going great.
06 was when I really ramped up the team. I was working with a lot of guys who were buying the kind of courtyard buildings and the medium size, maybe 8 to 10 unit, 12 unit buildings, 15 units, somewhere in there. And they were converting them into condos because it was just so easy. In retrospect, that was an example of an overly frothy market, right? Because no one should be turning those buildings, highest and best use are as apartment buildings, not individual condo units. But we didn't know at the time, right? And I definitely didn't know better. But that was actually when I first met Doug Imber, who owns Essex, who started Essex Realty Group. I called on one of his buildings, and the funny story is I was trying to find a building for these developers because I was trying to keep them as busy as possible. I was helping them every time I could find them a building. I knew I had at least a year's worth of listings to work on, right? So I called him on it, and he said to me, "It's so funny. Your name is Niko Apostal, right? Any chance your father is Bill Apostal?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "Well, funny story. When I started Essex, it was in like a small garden office space right next to his 26-unit building on Roscoe, and he was really nice to me. He was so encouraging. He introduced me to people. I would see me around, and so I'm going to be really nice to you right now because you're asking all the wrong questions. Let me tell you what you should be asking here." And so he was just so sweet and so kind and so encouraging. And you know, this is one of the first times I'm trying to broker a multi-unit building. So, and that was, you know, maybe around 05, 06-ish, right around there. So, and so that was my first introduction to buying multi-unit properties was those initial deals I did for the developers. And a lot of the things like what's the rental income and what's the, you know, what are the expenses, and it didn't really matter because they were going to gut it anyway and they were going to flip to condos. So I could bring them along on a showing and they would do their numbers and that was it. So flash forward 09. So by 06, I had a team of, I had 3 brokers who were helping me sell the condos. I had another broker on the team who was helping to find the buildings. And then I was going around and still trying to build my residential business, that type of thing.
And real quick, is this what neighborhoods? Just all over? Or?
All over, but primarily north side. So primarily, basically, River North up to Edgewater.
Okay.
I did several of these buildings were in Edgewater because there's just a lot more of them there.
It's very dense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so also you could get it, they could get in cheap enough and you could sell them. There was enough spread there. And people were priced out of the condo markets further south, and they just pushed north into those areas. And so then flash forward 08, right? The market collapses third quarter, fourth quarter. By 09, the developers were losing these properties left and right. We weren't getting the product to sell. Team members of mine were going into medical equipment sales and travel agencies and things like that. And so I had to reevaluate everything. And it was right around then that I met a nice young lady at the Boston University alumni event in Chicago. And she was an independent realtor who was managing a few buildings and a couple condo associations for some friends. And she and I sat down over beers and at Peace Pizzeria and Brewery in Bucktown. And we were like, okay, so I like sales. You like management. Let's work together and build a management company. So we started Owl Management. And that was my side hustle. It was her broker's license because you can't, in Illinois, you can't use a broker's license for more than one business. It's one business at a time. So I held my license at Coldwell Banker and we started the brokerage under her.
November 2008, I had 30 condo conversion contracts. I did, that's how I kind of came up in the whole condo. But I did out here in the burbs. All but one fell apart by the next month. And probably the one that I kept was I did whatever I could because I had to pay my mortgage. So it's like I took one, but it was
scary.
Give us, was there like a moment, like was there a specific deal or a specific moment at that time where it's like, oh crap, this is bad?
It was 2 of the buildings that I had from the developers when suddenly the phone stopped ringing. And they kept calling me saying, what's going on? What's going on? And I said, okay, we have to adjust these prices. And they're like, we just can't do that. And so then I think it wasn't necessarily a moment. It was just the realization slowly but steadily each passing week, the phone is not ringing. And you just sort of, other people on the team are like, I don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
And this is when I learned that you should have been prospecting your own stuff all along and not just waiting for me. And so, and then they started getting side gigs and moving on. And so it was a slow realization. But I also felt like I was going on, listing presentations. I was going on, proposal meetings, and people didn't have to sell and they didn't want to sell for those prices, but they didn't have an option in management. None of the good management companies would work on something so small or an individual condo unit. So I felt there was, first of all, the bar for property management was set very low. We founded our company on the principle, we will call you back within 24 hours. That principle alone got us so much business. Right. It's so funny. And so
it's sort of kind of like that.
Right.
Still, it's still pretty close.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Even the big companies who you think would be staffed up and capable of handling it. I mean, I get it. They're overwhelmed. I was there. So, and so we ran that on the side. And so I devoted more of my energy to that and less to the sales because that was where, and we were just rolling up. I was also at the time on the board of the Chicago Association of Realtors. I started this group called YPN. It's the Young Professional Network at the Chicago Association. And then I was in the process of getting myself on the board of the Illinois Realtors Association. So I had a ton of contacts within the industry, and having the property management company was a way to utilize those contacts to generate business. And that's where all of our first clients came from, were those referrals. We guaranteed that if a broker sent us a client, we would put their name on it. If they wanted to do the leasing, we'd give it back to them. If they wanted the deal when the guy went to sell the condo 2-3 years later, we would give it right back to them. So that kind of security gave them confidence to give us those referrals.
Okay. And you guys eventually get this up to like managing 800 doors roughly?
A little over that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big number. Like, talk to us from just going from 0 to 200. What has to change going 200 to 500, 500 to 800? Like, there's the world changes at each one of these milestones.
Absolutely. So let's see, right around probably about 5 years in, it's about halfway in, we pivoted. So we were managing condo associations, small ones, as well as rental apartments.
Which is also like the ultimate grind, right?
It's two different business
It's-
models.
Yeah,
it
the
is
condo
entirely.
association
Mhm.
sucks, right?
It's really hard. So think of it this way: we figured out that the real cost in time and effort, and in even cost, was the reporting factor. And so, if you have one owner that owns 12 units, you're getting 12 times the business for the one report. When you have a condo association, you have 12 owners with one building. So you have 12 times the work for only one fee. And the red flag came after about 4 years. We finally hired someone. Lauren, my partner, she was getting a salary from the company. She was director of operations. She was the CFO. She was the COO also. And so we finally hired someone and paid them more than her. And that guy lasted about 18 months. And then he burned out. And at that point we were like, you know what? We're out. We're going to refer out all this business and just focus on the rental apartments. And then that was a real aha, because at that point we went from about 1,100 units, but 400 clients, to about 300 clients, but or whatever it was, 300 units, but we were making so much more per unit because you had the economies of scale from the single report. And so then building around that, Lauren remains to this day one of the most brilliant operational minds I have ever met. And I have huge respect for her. She was able to, with about 12 full-time staff and a few part-timers and then virtual assistants in both India and the Philippines, and a ton of systems and operational structure, was able to grow us with only very incremental fixed cost increases, and just able to grow. And so that last 4 years or so, we grew like crazy. And then flash forward 2016, I'm being encouraged and groomed to become a managing broker at Coldwell Banker. And in the process, I just was realizing how restrictive that company was around what you could do in an individual office. Meanwhile, one of my friends that I met, that I recruited to YPN, who was now on the board with me at the Chicago Association of Realtors, Tommy Choi, invites me to coffee and says, "Hey, you remember that brokerage Keller Williams? I've got a few friends, my partner Josh and I, and we're going to start it back up." It had closed in Chicago, had kind of vacated the market for whatever reason. And they loved the training, they loved the model, they loved the brokerage. And it was a chance to do sort of a hybrid situation. What's great about the Keller Williams model is you run your franchise office the way you want to, and they provide you with great resources, training, tools, system, structure, and you can utilize as much of it as you like and kind of, within their standards. So it felt like having this big brokerage backing us, but we could make all of our decisions and choices ourselves, and we knew what we wanted to do. So in 2016, I left in October. 2016, so everything happened in October for me. October started in real estate at Coldwell Banker. October, we started the property management company. October, I started Keller Williams One Chicago with Tommy Choi, Josh Weinberg, and Joe Zimmerman. And it was a battle because Compass had just showed up in Chicago. And there was a lot of change going on. There was some more consolidation. And so we had what I thought was going to be off to the races ended up being a real struggle, just like it was for the property management company, just like it was starting the team. Who knew? There's work involved when you start a business.
Yeah. It sounds great, right?
Right.
So when you make this move now, and Tommy Choi, he does like high-end stuff. Like I only follow him. I don't know him personally, but at this time, is he doing like high-end condos and just like skyscraper stuff? Or am I mixing up the people here?
Yeah, Tommy and Josh and their team, they had about 10 people on the team between the admin staff and brokers. They're still right around there. I think it's a whole different group though, but they were basically regular standard to luxury real estate downtown and in the neighborhoods.
Yep. Okay.
And Tommy in particular, he really leaned in on the associations. So he was speaking all around the country. He still is, by the way. And so he was getting referrals from every state, anyone coming into the state. He and Josh also just run a really great team with tons of positive energy. And so they were the real heart of the culture that we built around when we started Keller Williams.
Yep. And for our listeners who might be looking to make a similar move, right? Or partner with their, hey, I'll leave mine, you'll leave yours, and we'll go start this brokerage. What are maybe some of the learning lessons or tips you would give them for just figuring it all out? Like, you guys have different cultures, you have different geos you work in, like just making it all work under one umbrella.
Because when you work for someone else, you always see the commission and think, oh, I could keep it all myself, and it's like that grass is not always that green.
No, it's true. I mean, it's true with the property management company too. There's expenses that you don't expect, so you need to have, I would say, minimum 15% cash like reserve just in case of unexpected expenses. And we're talking things like, we signed a copier contract and the copy machines wouldn't work and they dicked us around for, I don't even know how long. I mean, it was months. And this is one of the fundamental pain points for every broker there. And so we went to what's cool about Keller Williams is you kind of go back to the brokers, and they have a method and a forum for asking, guess what? Ask your brokers what they would like and then deliver that to them. What a nice idea. So they only wanted to charge 5 cents a page. They offered to charge them 5 cents a page for a color copier if we could get a good copier that worked, a really high-end copier. And like that process took us 6 months and a ton of pain. And we had to get out of a contract. We had to get a lawyer involved. Like, there's all these little things you don't think about. And it's something as fundamental as like, I wish I had opened the office next to a Kinko's, something like that. Right?
It's all those non-revenue generating activities you have to do when you run a business. It's like
the errors and emissions.
It's bad enough real estate agents already spend so much time in non-revenue generating moments, but now you put that on top of running a business. It's double.
True. And you suddenly realize, gosh, I got to pay the rent. I got to pay the lights. I got to pay, the insurance. All those things are costs that you're not including when you're looking at the 10, 20, 30% you're giving your brokerage. It's like, there's a ton of overhead.
But then all of a sudden you just get in the mail saying, hey, we're going to do a random audit and you have to have everything ready in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they do it.
And you're going on a
first year
next
in.
week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They will do it every brokerage right after the first year.
Yes.
The state of Illinois will do it every single time.
Yep. All right. So this is 2016. You still have the management company.
Yep.
Keep us going down the timeline here.
All right. So left Cobo, started Keller. At the time, so more of my attention was being pulled away to starting the new brokerage, and we started a title company alongside it, things like that. And so we weren't fully staffed up yet. That's the other thing I think it's important to know if you're going to start your own operation is you got to focus on staff first. You got to, sometimes this is true with the management company too. You feel like you're pushing and pulling it all the time. You're like, God, I just need a couple more people in here to manage the business we have and be able to pitch that next client. And then you bring them in and now your overhead is over your income. And then you're like, well, I got to get that client. And then you get the client and you're like, oh no, now I need more staff to service that new client or two. It's the same in a brokerage too. It's like we just got 10 new brokers that came over this month. Oh no, what are we going to do? We need to get someone who can at least just run the front desk and do do the paperwork. So there's that push, pull. You need to get the income, but then you need to spend to be able to service those people. And that was constant. And I was spending more and more time on that. And so flash forward then a couple more years, 2018, Lauren and I started getting unsolicited calls from random people. Right now, we were right around 800 units at this point for a property management company. And we had reached we had stalled. We needed to get up to about 1,100 units to really reach the economy of scale that we wanted, to be able to add new revenue sources, to be able to upgrade the software and get some tools, a couple more staff in. And we knew that we had to get there, and we had kind of stalled around this 800 mark. And so we started getting unsolicited calls from random people who had no business running a property management company, asking to buy us. And in my experience, in all these different markets, when you're getting unsolicited calls, the market is frothy. Right? The values are high. People are seeking you out. So Lauren and I sat down at our annual planning meeting in December 2018, and we were like, okay, let's pursue this 2 ways. I will go out and try and find us either another partner or some capital to be able to just front load that growth to get to our threshold. And you go out and talk to all the really good, reputable property management companies that we know and see if they might be, just float the idea of maybe they might be interested. We might be open to talking about selling. And sure enough, our really good friends at TriView, Lauren called them and they said, we can't talk to you about this right now, but don't sell without calling us first. Okay, so flash forward a few months later, we get a call from Westward 360, who had just completed the buyout of TriView and said, we want to buy you. And what they wanted, which was interesting, was more than our book of business. They wanted our staff. We were all trained on the same software, all using Propertyware. And a lot of the systems that Lauren was using, sort of back office and administrative and HR related, were the same ones that TriView was using, which is, I think, part of the reason why they bought TriView too, was they just wanted the systems, they wanted the people. And knowing how hard it is to hire, train, and keep staff, I totally get it. So they gave us an awesome price. We signed the deal in June. They gave us a 3-quarter retention carryover. So right as the pandemic starts, March of 2020, we're out. So I took that opportunity at this point. I still was running a sales team at Keller Williams. I took this opportunity to fire everybody. I fired everybody. I went back to zero. I just had my 3rd kid. I was living in my 2-flat in Logan Square. We had just done a renovation to combine our first floor apartment in with the basement so we'd have room for the 3rd kid. And I was just coming off of that excruciating renovation, all the different drama that was happening. I was on these 2 different boards. I was on these committees, and I was like, I'm out. I withdrew myself from the associations. Well, I was still a member of CAR, but I got out of all the committees. I got out of everything I was doing, and I spent 4 months at home with my new baby.
Yeah, how great did that feel?
It was the best.
Putting the middle finger up to everyone is so good.
Right. And having those checks come in each quarter was like, okay, I can take a breather here. Like, I've been literally on a race for 20 years, and it's about time to like take stock and reevaluate.
Yeah, no, that 700 to 1,000 door mark for any property management company, that's you hit the ceiling, you keep hitting your head against the wall. You have to you got into the business because you're good at managing properties, but now you have to learn how to manage people that much more, manage the entire organization, and now you're 2 or 3 layers away from the guy that's actually helping the person on the street. So
if you don't mind sharing too, you mentioned like they really wanted your people. How does that get structured? Like, do they get like a 3-year buyout? Because like if they all leave in 6 months, like that's a waste on their end. Like how did they protect themselves? You don't mind sharing some details?
I mean, detail wise, they maintained the salaries and employment agreements that we had signed, and they all had, everyone had the ability to leave, and it was up to them to kind of nurture them into the roles. But they actually did a great job of meeting with each one individually and finding them great roles. And up until last year, one of the main heads of their division was one of our property managers, Tammy Manta, who they hired, and she was just running the whole show over there, and for one of their divisions. And it was just, we took great pride in creating good systems and nurturing good people, and that lesson comes back to me over and over and over again. If you hire right, hire on attitude, hire on hustle, hire on thick skin, because we're in an industry where you're going to get,
no one calls you up and tells you you're doing a good job.
Right. Yeah. So hire someone who's resilient enough to be able to take criticism and adapt and move on and not get all offended by it. So maybe that's attitude. I don't know. And then just give them resources and let them run. Like, don't micromanage. Make them understand the goal. And then just give them whatever they need to achieve that goal. So if you can do that, that's how you scale. That's the secret sauce in every organization, no matter what it is, whether it's a small real estate team, whether it's a huge property management company, or whether it's a brokerage. Keller Williams is now 400 something brokers as I'm leaving it. So,
yep. All right. So you take some time off here. You enjoy time with your 3rd kid. When do you start getting the itch?
August, September. I'm like, the phone starts ringing again. This is 2020. And so I go and I hire a new admin. she ended up going to work for the office because we were also growing. Keller Williams at the time also had a chance to pivot. And we had this opportunity to meet with the person who became the president of Keller Williams International. And he was our regional director. And we made the case that Keller Williams gives its territories based on zip code. And in an urban area like Chicago, that's dumb. You're tripping over zip code. We literally opened our office, and then a year later, a group was opening office. We were 60614. They were 60657.
Yeah.
The overlap was crazy, and people were dropping checks, in earnest money checks and things off at the wrong office. And so we had like a regular messenger going back and forth because it was all separate accounts. But we took that opportunity. The office near O'Hare and the office in Lakeview that had opened, they had both kind of overspent a little bit. They were really enthusiastic, exuberant. And then when the pandemic hit, they just couldn't pivot. So our group was really fiscally conservative. And we were able to sort of buy them out and then get exclusive rights to the entire north half of the city of Chicago as our territory,
Nice.
which was a whole new thing for KW, but it makes sense. And so from there, during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time and gave a lot of resources to the office to help that restructuring. And so my original assistant went there. And then I came across, this is another great story. I hired a nice young lady who had been she'd worked in hospitality and then worked as for a whiskey distillery as a sales rep. Kind of a toxic environment for a single young lady to be in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, Kentucky, like not safe. So she moved back to Chicago. She had just gone sober. She just got her license and worked for apartment people or as a rental agent. Just, they'll take anybody, right? So, they just need them. And you kind of prove yourself on a job. She comes to Keller Williams. Keller Williams has a wonderful aptitude test that they do where they kind of help you figure out where your role should be, either on a team or as an agent. And she was an admin. She wasn't a salesperson. And so when I was interviewing to replace my admin, who was becoming their office manager, she came in, we set goals for her. Her goal was, I want to buy a loft condo in Bucktown. I want to get a Great Dane, and I want to buy a Jeep. Great. Let's make those your goals. And she didn't have much experience. She had nothing on her resume to go off of, but she had attitude. She wasn't afraid of criticism, and she had hustle. And I could tell that, and her goals were something that I could provide. So but the two of us, she came in, and within a few months, we were off to the races. Fourth quarter of 2020.
Yeah, we're at 2% interest rates here, right?
It bailed out every broker who was struggling. I had listings and clients from 5-6 years ago who would say I decided I'm going to stay. They all called me. I had the greatest 18-month run of my career, and I had cut my expenses down to almost zero. And it was a heady, amazing time. And with Elise and all of her incredible, just the way her mind worked, we were able to build systems. We rebranded. I was the Apostal group because my mom was on my team. And mom retired. Elise switched us over. He helped nurture us into Niko Collaborative. And the idea was do what I love. And what I had been doing more and more, what I loved was helping people buy their first investment property, 2 to 4 flats. I bought a couple condos downtown. I was living in one. I was renting out a couple. I never made great income off of them. And so once I was married, having my first kid coming, I sold them and bought a 2-flat in Logan Square. And it was a great building, but it also was the back porch was falling off and the rear bricks were falling and there was water in the basement. And so I beat out 4 other bidders to get it, taking it as is. And then I renovated it, got the tenants upstairs, renovated the first floor, got myself into it. And then we dug out the basement to prepare for in case we wanted to either put an apartment or duplex it down. And so that was, this is all again, 2017, 18-ish. So, and it changed my life. My monthly costs went from, I think it was $3,600 a month down to $1,100 a month because of the rent and because the tax base was different. I had more control over my destiny. I had more control over what I could do with the property.
Well, and your net worth is going up at a much higher clip too. You
Sure.
own this whole building,
Right?
Even though you're only paying $1,100, whatever the mortgage is minus the rent,
Right.
you're only coming out $1,100 out of pocket.
And and I was able to buy with, I think it was 10% down, which
Yeah.
was more than I needed to. I could put as little as 5. And then by the time,
You're getting, you have 10% into that. Let's say it's 500,000.
it was
You have
525.
See, like Logan Square at that time, that's the pricing.
Yeah.
You have 10% into it, so at 50 grand. But if that property goes up 10%, you're getting 10% on 500,
Right.
not 10% on 50.
Yes.
Like you've made your money back, right? Like now
Yeah.
the trade off is you have a mortgage, you have a responsibility. But if you're responsible, like this works every time. It's
Sure.
amazing.
And I had to spend, I think it was 150,000 out the gate to get it up and running, but still, and to get it to where I could live in it and be ready to expand in it. But still, by the time I was done with that, and then when I spent another 150 to duplex it down, right, I had like 60% equity in that building. And I was able to pull a line of credit off of that and buy another. And that's a huge aha, in the span of where I was, and then 3 years later where I ended up, to be able to then invest in the brokerage, to be able to invest in the title company, and to be able to have those funds. And I was able to do that with 1 2-flat in Logan Square. So you color me, a convert, like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
That was like, for me, I was like, what have
I'm
I
in.
been doing? Flipping, selling condos downtown. This is great.
Yeah. All right. So we're focusing on 2 to 4 units. This is, you ride this out now from 2020 through 2025, or walk us through.
So
before
yeah,
Essex.
so this is me now learning from the property management company how to operate these. It's learning how it's learning how to get into them, and then so starting 2020, really 2021, we do a deep dive into rebranding, and that meant also just like doing a lot of soul searching. What do we like? Who are we? What's our point of difference? What do we do best? And Niko Collaborative was founded on the idea that everyone should be able to use the real estate they have to control their destiny and build long-term generational wealth. So let's lean in on that. So starting in 2021, I pivoted and I started focusing the entirety of my outreach, my client development, everything I was doing on helping people find and buy and operate 2 to 4 flats. And by flash forward to this year, now that sort of grew to the point where it was more than half my business, this year. And it's what I enjoy more than anything. I come in, I love this stuff. I love working the numbers. I figured out a really simple way using a Keller Williams spreadsheet from the book Hold. I don't know if you've ever read that book. It's a really simple way to evaluate a property. It's not fancy. It doesn't have tabs. It's 1-page spreadsheet. And I color coded it and put the formulas in. So now I can just plug and chug, and everyone looks at it and says, oh, okay, this much in plus this much less this much. Okay, make money. Good. It's
thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, simplify it, because I'm trying. My whole mission was like, I love this. It's great. So now let's take Elise as an example. After a couple years of this is now 2023. She decides to buy her own first place. She has now gotten her Jeep.
Got the Great Dane.
She's got the Great Dane.
All right.
She's ready to buy the condo. Decides to buy a 3-flat on Central Park, right near the 606 instead. And she went, and it was being sold by a Redfin broker who actually owned it himself. And he had just moved on. He was ready for the next thing. It was perfect for her. She was able to move into the top floor apartment. A year later, she had saved funds and took out a loan and renovated it. And then a pipe burst, and thanks to the really great insurance I got her, she was able to renovate the kitchens of the first and second floor apartment as well. And then the rent, she was able to double the rent on the building. And then now, at this point, she's moved on. She got her project management degree and certificate. And so she got a job with Abbott Labs. This was all transparent. I was encouraging her all along. But she moved in with her boyfriend, and the job didn't work out at Abbott. And so she's now looking for another job. But she has rent from 3 apartments that covers all of her living expenses. And she has the freedom to pick the next role she wants. So she's a living example of going from, like a tough situation, and how, in the right environment and with the right resources applied the right way, she has changed her life completely. And that's what gets me excited every day. Come in, change somebody's life. And I know it sounds cheesy, and no, I don't know if it's, but
No,
it's
but
awesome.
it is. It's one. And we talk about it all the time. It's one building a year.
Yeah.
Like that's all you got.
Mhm.
You don't even have to do that much.
Nope.
no.
Like everyone's always, all right, I'm gonna wholesale 55 deals, or I'm gonna go buy the courtyard.
100
building.
units. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
no,
man.
it's like, dude, like this is
Just get
simple.
one.
Yeah.
Buy the 2 unit.
Yep.
Also, every time we have someone on who owns 1,000 units, they say, "Yep, I started with the 2." Like almost every one of them started down this path, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Nice little 3-flat, lived in the garden apartment.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love how for our listeners that aren't watching this right now, like you just light up, man, when you talk about this, and that's probably so important for just your personal happiness. Your kids are happier, your whole family is just happier. You're just a great guy to be around because you found a way to be happy, and that's amazing in itself.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel fortunate about all the resources and support I had, all the mistakes I made. And I had a lot of help along the way, even from Essex. Coming in out of the pandemic, they were referring me a lot of their 2 and 3 and 4 unit buildings and their single families that they would get cast off of clients that they were working with. And then, I guess about 2 years ago, they decided there's something that we can work with here. Let's bring this in house. So they set up a new incorporation, new company, Essex 312, and my referrals from them just dried up overnight. And I was like, what happened to that? Did I do something wrong? But no, they were just going for it on their own and trying it out. So
Yep. So you taught us something off air. I always thought it was just 312 because of the area code. I didn't realize it stood for 3 to 12 units.
yeah,
So
I love that.
I feel like I should have known that. Sorry,
Yeah.
Essex. All right, so a lot of our listeners probably know Essex. We've had Rick Offen on, we've had Matt Fio on, we've had a lot of the brokers on. They explain the difference between 312 and just Essex
Realty
Realty
Group.
that everyone knows that sells the courtyard buildings and so forth.
Right. So Essex Realty Group, ERG, started over 30 years ago, and they are among the best I've ever met. They're so kind with their knowledge, and they really hold everyone through deals, and they really make it work for people. And I love the way they do that. They crush it selling 20 to 400 unit properties and portfolios and things like that. They're all invested in things themselves too, which is, when you live in what you're selling, it's a lot easier. You have a lot more credibility and a lot more experience to draw from. So,
Yeah. And
so
I'll, real quick,
yeah.
I'll just personal, like I've bought several buildings now from Essex, and like it's a great experience. And I'm not like saying this to like blow smoke, but one, the fact that I've worked with multiple brokers, they all figured out on the back end. There's not like that fight over or whatever. Like that makes this experience a lot better. And 2, I'll give you guys, you have one in front of you. I actually love your guys' performers.
Oh, good.
Like it's actually very realistic. We up the taxes. They include the rehab budget in there. Like it's probably the most realistic I've seen out of all the brokers.
There's a lot less fluff in it as well too, compared to the way they just try to make these longer ones and have multiple pages of just crap.
Yeah, there's an actual like game plan in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
that's pretty realistic. So like, yes, I just want to throw my 2 cents in there.
Well, thanks. And I will say that part of what made me comfortable with going over to a place like this is that approachability that they all seem to have, just in conversation, but also in the materials that they produce. They're thinking, what is someone who doesn't know how to do this, or who might be a little nervous about it? What would make them more comfortable? Like, what would make them see that? Or what's the opportunity that I see that I think other people should see too? Not just throw it out there and let other people figure it out, So
All right.
that's the environment that they approached me on earlier this year, probably sometime second quarter. I was doing a deal. I was out with some buyers. I had been calling on some of their listings that were starting to show up in the MLS. Essex Realty Group has access to CoStar and a bunch of other resources. They set up Essex 312 to have access to MLS, because selling a 4-unit building is entirely different than selling a 5-unit building or more. And it's largely because the debt is different. You're able to buy a 4-unit building like a single family home. You can put as little as 5% down. In some cases, even as little as 3.5% down to buy it and then live in it. And so the calculation for a buyer there is not how much can I make off of it, but how much less am I spending per month to live here than I would be spending to, even in some cases, rent one of the apartments in the building I'm buying. And to be able to approach it from that direction, it requires a different set of information. You don't want to hand a 40-page pro forma to a first-time buyer. They might say, maybe I don't want to do this after all. You know what I'm saying? Like, so having a much more simplified, a much more approachable, it really resonated with them. And so the conversation started a little bit like, you know, we do things this way, and we're finding it's not getting the traction we expected. When we referred things to you, you used to run with them and they'd close. It was great. It was a really great experience. So can you tell us more about how you did that? And I was happy to tell them. And after a while, the conversation turned into, why don't you just come over here and run this? Can you just do this for us? And at first, you know, I'm so heavily invested in time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears and money into Keller Williams. I'm like, I would never leave here. It's the most wonderful residential brokerage. But the more I thought about it at this stage of my life, being surrounded by everyone who's already doing what I love, instead of being one of the only people in the office doing it, there's an exponential nurturing effect that comes from that, right? You have, I've grown so much in the 6 weeks I've been there running this team, just in terms of seeing what people are doing, hearing what they're talking about, having people come over and say, hey, you know, on that building, you should probably call this guy, because what he'll do is he'll find, you know, historic tax breaks. So this vintage building, he can do more with it than another buyer would. I never would have thought of that. I never would have had that exposure. And my mission, I think, is over the next 3 years to build a group that really bridges residential with investing, really nurtures that new investor or small-time investor to go in on it and feel comfortable with it and set them up for success. Because I think it'll benefit me. I love it. It's exciting. But I also think it'll benefit the agents that we have on the team, and it'll benefit that next generation of investor. And there's no better place in the country, probably on the planet, to be a small or first-time investor in real estate than in Chicago.
Oh, the housing stock is perfect for it.
It's the highest concentration of 2 to 4 flats in the country. And I don't know about the stat above that, but I would imagine it's also that way. You know, out east, they bulldozed them all and built single families or huge complexes. But out west, they never built them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I also, not to be like Debbie Downer, but I think housing is such a problem that more and more people are going to house hack out of necessity. Not because they're an investor or invested minded, but just the normal person's be like, well, this is the way I'm going to get out of my parents' house.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to become a necessity, and the housing stock is there to support it. And the information is getting out there more and more too. Like it's become, I really think it's become more common for your quote unquote non-investors.
Sure, absolutely. And with a shortage of particularly single family homes in Chicago and the demand that just never seems to quit.
And there's certain neighborhoods that just barely have any single family homes. So if you want to live in a place like Logan, the affordable single family homes in a neighborhood like
doesn't
that
exist.
It's not possible. And so then you take someone, you say, hey, listen, let's buy this 3 flat. You can live in one, and then when you're ready, you can take over the other. But in the meantime, you're going from paying $6,500 a month to $2,500 a month on the same size property. You can spend the same amount, but your monthly cost is so much lower because of the income coming in.
Yeah, bigger write-offs, bigger appreciation opportunity, all that.
Yeah, all of it. What are some of the gotchas when someone goes to buy a 2 to 4 unit? Whether it be physical or the tenants, or like what are like, hey, these are the things like the deal breakers that you help steer your clients away from or negotiate?
Sure. I can think of several gotchas right off the top of my head. First is just the physical building itself. One of the things we ran into a lot when we had the management company was you got to check the plumbing. Is it galvanized or copper? Galvanized, we were calling the plumber out 2 to 3 times more often. So and that's as simple as looking, if you can get to a basement and look up at a ceiling, are those copper or are they kind of a muted silver color? You know, that's one really simple one. Open the electrical panel. Is it fuses or circuit breakers? If it's not circuit breakers, that's costly and expensive and dangerous, and your insurance will be higher as well. I think another really simple thing is turn on the water. To go to the farthest place from where the water comes in, like the farthest corner that you can get to a faucet, turn it on. How long does a hot water tank take to get there? Also, now one of the cool things I've started doing is you can take ChatGPT and take a picture of any label off of any appliance, and it'll tell you when it was made, where it was made, and what the reliability is on it. And so you can go in and decide, well, this is probably going to conk out in a year versus I got maybe 10 years on this dishwasher. And that's helpful too. So it helps you so there's a physical element to it. And look for stains on any walls anywhere. Another thing I think that I've noticed more and more is you can only push rent so far on a property based on the bedroom size. So if you're buying some of these old vintage buildings and the bedrooms are 7x9, it's really hard to push rents. And then you have the closet that comes in the room and the door swings in. So now you can really only fit a twin size bed in that room. That is much harder to raise rents on than something that's at least 10x10. And there are some tricks to get around it. You can change to sliding doors on the closet or pocket doors on the that'll help a little bit. But there is a limiting factor to how much you can grow the rent with really small bedrooms. And that's something you can't really see in the MLS or on CoStar or LoopNet. You got to see it with your own eyes. And I think probably the other thing is, having good people on hand who you can ask a question to. If you have a good plumber, electrician, if you have a good insurance person, when you walk into a building, if it has that non-conforming garden or attic apartment, insurance is going to be different on that. You can't just go to the regular State Farm and say, hey, I want this. Maybe you can. And I would check with them first. They're the biggest and the baddest in the industry, right? So, but then being able to go into like an insurance broker who might have an alternative, that's super important. That's right now become one of the main economic factors outside of property taxes and your mortgage rate. So everyone's now asking about insurance on these buildings.
Yeah, and it could vary wildly. I mean, boiler building with old fuses, like the insurance can be triple.
It's true.
Like it's a big factor now, where before it was maybe $1,000 difference.
Yeah, and that can totally skew your numbers. That's your entire profit at that point.
Yep.
If you're doing it wrong.
You got some material in front of us. What do we got here?
Well, I brought an example, and it sort of ties into the neighborhood I'm most excited about right now. This is close to my heart again. I've watched over and over again, someone buying a building and having it change lives. And that's led to me being introduced to other people who want the same thing. So there is a really easy sell in that regard to lining up new buyers. But this is an example of, as I was negotiating, with Essex and trying to figure out whether this was going to be right for me, I actually ended up doing a deal with one of the Essex 312 agents, Garrett Lee, who is enormously experienced. He came from working in real estate investment groups. So he knows it from the pure, investment side of it. And he owns 60 some odd units on his own with capital he's raised from his friends. So he was selling one of his own buildings. And one of the factors that went into this is it's a 4-unit building. It's 2058 Erie is where it's located. And if you know that area of West Town, it's really interesting because it sort of has an old, almost, you're leading into Smith Park. You're kind of coming
that
off
far,
yeah. Right? And you're just north of the Metro line and that sort of West Loop area, but you're also further west than that. And what you're starting to see is the rent growth over here is outstanding. And why are you seeing that? It's a couple of factors. One is there still is this great housing stock. This was a brother and sister who wanted to get out of renting and figured if they could go in together on a property, they could keep it the rest of their lives. And so we found a nice 4-flat. They are going from paying, I think, $3,200, one of them, and the other $3,000 a month for their rental apartments, down. They're each now paying $2,000 a month for their 2 units that they're living in separately. And then they have 2 apartments that they're now renting out, and that covers the rest of that cost. What they like this area is you're walking distance to United Center. You're a 12-minute, 14-minute walk from their house to there. And they're about to put $7 billion into development around there. And when you look at the map around that, it is fascinating. East of there, the values are 100% higher than west of there. North of there, the values are about 50% higher. And so looking at experience in other neighborhoods like Logan Square and Avondale and how they all changed as the affluence and spilled over into neighborhoods as people felt more comfortable being there. This is prime target for that. And that was one of the motivating factors for them, was they wanted something that they weren't as concerned about cash flow, right? Because they're just more concerned about paying less for rent so they can save more, but also they wanted something rapidly appreciating. And so it was a great deal. it was wonderful to be able to collaborate with Garrett and see sort of what he was putting out and then be able to translate that to my clients and sort of see a path where I could be the residential broker who nurtured the person into the deal. And then to see how we could take what Essex was already doing really well, and then with a few modifications, translations, make it appeal to a brother and sister who just wanted a better living situation and a better way to invest in their future.
Yeah, that area is awesome. And personal story, Zach Shepard had a deal on there on Superior, right down the block.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed on it last year. Morsh took it down, and he just sold it. And I was like, oh man, I really missed. Like my ARV was like 200 grand under what he got. And I was like, oh, I did not believe in that neighborhood as much as I should have. Like that was a pure miss on my end.
Yeah. And so like, depending on your level of guts and your level of staying power and maybe backing, the further west and further south you go from there, it gets more risky, but there's also huge upside.
Well, I got a 6 unit on the other side of Western. I'm west of Western. I'm getting 3,000 for a 2-2.
Incredible.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's already gotten that far over. Like
west of Western
between Division and Augusta.
Yeah.
And I'm getting $3,000 for 2-2s.
That's fantastic.
Like that's why it's already happening, right? Like it's almost we're gonna hit. I don't know where it's gonna keep going, but like it's already happening over there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you go a few blocks north or east of there, you can't find an apartment, first of all, and second of all, you're paying $4,000 for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great little pocket there. What else we got here?
Yeah, so and I was just did a little research on like you compare the two areas. Like if you go to the area you're talking about north into West Town, so Chicago has community areas. This would be 8024, which is that sort of area. It kind of encompasses
true MLS junkie.
I still know every code like too. I still like type in by code. Anyway, but if you look up there, I just did 2 to 4 flats in these areas. And what's super fascinating is you look, this is now the area that goes into Bucktown a little bit, not quite to Logan Square, goes from the expressway to, not quite Peterson-ish, And so you look over there, this year to date, there's been 116 2 to 4 flats sold in that area. And there's 28 active right now. And the average list price is $930. Sale price is $886. And what that tells me is that we're kind of, we're reaching the end of where appreciation is going when you see the averages of list versus sell be a little lower. Now flash down, just go south of, I think it's like south of Grand basically, right? Now you're in the near west side, which is 8028, right? So number of deals so far this year, 30. Number of active, 10. Nobody's targeting this area. And then the average sale price over here, your list price is $677 and your sale price is $670. So what that tells me is there's huge opportunity here. You can get in at a much lower price. The pressure to increase is right on the edge. We're right on the edge where these things are going to start selling for over what the list price is on average. And with so few transactions, it's a place where I think you can really find some opportunity to get in and get in easily. Now realize that area encompasses the West Loop also, but there aren't any 2 to 4
units there.
Right. So you really are looking at basically, I don't know, let's say west of Ashland.
Yeah.
And think about all the buildings when you drive around there. There's some great old housing stock. You can, with very little bit of repair cost, get them in there, get them rented, maybe add a unit. The other thing we're super excited about is starting in April of next year, we're going to have a chance to try and legalize garden apartments, attic apartments, and build new coach houses with the new ADU ordinance that was passed by the city of Chicago.
Yep. And a lot of these aldermans in these areas too are very pro adding units.
Absolutely.
Right. It's not the not in my backyard type of people. These are the people
Exactly.
who are gonna opt
management.
into it
Yep.
and support. And even my minimal experience here, I've had 2 zoning changes, both approved. I'm 2 for 2 in the area of just going and saying, hey, like, will you upzone me from R4 to R5? And it's been and they're like, yes. Are you gonna add more units? Yes. Done. Like they're very. They want units. Yes.
Right. And so there's plenty of room to run there. And, again, it's not going to be a 2 or 3 year play, but but 5 to 10 years out, I mean, you're going to be thanking everyone around you for encouraging you to buy over there.
And that's how you should be thinking 5 to 10 years out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Real estate's not get rich quick. It's get rich slow.
Yep. Brick by brick, right?
Yep. Little by little, baby steps.
All right. So we talked about little neighborhoods. Pulling it back out here, macro level. What's your outlook on Chicago? Chicago as a whole for the next 5-10 years?
So I have often said this. I think Chicago there's probably no better city in the world that has unrealized potential. I go around, I've been to tons of cities. I've traveled a ton with the associations and for personal, and I just keep coming back to Chicago and thinking, man, we have so many things going for us here. It just takes a little bit of will, a little bit of coordination, maybe from local government or the will of the people in the neighborhoods to understand that continuing to invest and develop these neighborhoods is good for everybody. It really is. It increases the housing stock, it increases the livability of these neighborhoods, and it increases the values of the properties. So overall, I'm still super bullish on Chicago. Anytime you get anyone moving here from the coasts, they come here and their jaw drops at what they can get for their dollars. I mean, I love when people come from California and they're like, yeah, I want to buy a 3-flat. And they're like, I'll write you a check, right, for the whole $1 million, whatever. And they're just shocked.
There's a shock that's under $1 million.
Yes, exactly.
That's
right?
under $2 million.
You come from New York and like what passes for an apartment in New York is atrocious. You would never be able to rent that in Chicago, even for any price. And yet they rent them there. So they come here and they think, man, this is fantastic. So I still think we're largely an affordable place to live. There's a lot of sort of structural things that I wish would happen that would really open up more neighborhoods and more opportunities. But we're just, a small change in administration away from making that being off to the races again. So
yeah, agree wholeheartedly. I never go on a trip and then come back and be like, oh man, I want to move there.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Right.
never, I always come home and I'm like, oh, this feels good.
yeah, it's such a great city. It really is. I mean, there's a reason why the James Beard Foundation moved its headquarters here,
Yep. All right. Ready to wrap?
Ready to wrap?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do all this over the last 20 plus years while others wish they could?
My competitive advantage is seeking the win-win. It's coming from a mindset of abundance and realizing that every deal has an opportunity where everyone can win. And if you approach things that way, you build better relationships with the brokers you're working with, you build better relationships with the contractors you hire, and you get repeat business from the clients you've worked with. So, putting in that kind of care up front means less effort down the road.
Love it.
Yep. All right. What is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Start living below your means and save. The more capital you have going into it, the much easier the process is.
Oh, it's not a sexy answer. It's too realistic. No, it's great. It's great advice.
What do you do for fun?
Play with my 3 daughters and ski.
All right. With the 3 daughters yet? How's the oldest? Is she out there yet or no?
11.
Oh, she's out
I
there.
have 11, 8, and 6.
All right.
Yeah.
Give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity you recommend to our listeners.
I love Freakonomics Radio podcast. I love The One Thing. It's a podcast that
Yep. Gary Keller.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The book that impacted me the most this year is a book called The Power of Full Engagement, and it's about managing your energy level, not specifically your time.
Yeah, check that out. All right. Other than yourself, name a valuable resource for other Chicago real estate investors.
Cityscape. It's a piece
Yeah,
of
Steve
software.
Anson.
Have you ever tried it?
I was just thinking we should
Yeah.
have Steve back on. He hasn't been on since like episode 100.
He is somewhere in the world. I have an email out to him about the whole ADU stuff going on.
Okay, I was
and he
gonna-
said he'll come on in like December.
Because he just dropped so much detail and data.
Oh,
That's
man.
a great follow on
That tool is
LinkedIn,
insane.
especially if you're following the ADUs.
Yeah.
Like he's got all the data, all the permits. Like yes,
Mhm. That's a great tool. That, and I love the book Hold. That one is just something so simple. And you can actually go online and find the spreadsheet that they've posted about Hold. That's the book Hold. And that, for anyone who's just tiptoeing into the industry or tiptoeing into their first investment, it just cuts out all the noise and gives you the very basics of what you need to evaluate a property.
Yep. All right, Niko, thank you so much. You provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they
Thanks.
learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
So I love hearing from people. I would love to hear from anyone who's interested. I love answering questions. I'm really passionate about this. I'm trying to develop more and more content to put online to help nurture more and more people into this area. So I think that's primary. And secondarily, if you know a nice old man or a nice old lady with a 2 to 4 flat that they want to unload, I have all the resources to help that person get into assisted living, clear out all their stuff, maximize the value on their goods, and then prepare that home to sell to the next generation.
All right, it's good stuff. We end with our Chicago fact. Who are we playing for? Who's sponsoring?
All right. We're playing for Ron Goldman. Wasn't that OJ's attorney?
I don't know.
Ronald Goldman. All right, playing for Ronald Goldman. He left his review. So, Ronald, if myself or Niko gets this question right, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Essex Capital Markets, Essex 312.
All right. We got everyone from Essex.
Yeah, Essex. I want to make sure no one's left out.
All right. So we didn't talk about this neighborhood today, but someone told me this, and then I looked it up online, so obviously it is true. So your question is, the neighborhood of Pilsen was named after a city in which European country? And your options are Poland, the Czech Republic, Germany, Romania. Pilsen's named after a city in which one of those European countries?
My government. My gut was Germany. You got to pick a different one. So
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic it is. Did you know it or no?
No.
Good guess.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah.
All right. Well, Ron, you get a $50 gift card. Good job, Niko. You get a $50 gift card thanks to Niko. So thanks and shout out to our sponsor today, Essex Capital Markets and Essex 312. So Niko, thanks for coming on. Tom, thanks for coming on. Listeners, do you know someone that would make a great podcast episode? If you do, let us know. Maybe you make a great podcast guest. Come on board, and we'd love to talk to you, have you on here, and share value with other Chicago investors. So Niko, thank you. Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.
Thanks.